6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All systems go.
You're listening to Sudbury News Talk.
I want to show you something.
Stand by.
On the morning shift.
Anything
Could happen.
Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.
And good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sudbury News Talk. On the morning shift, I'm AJ Walsh. Glad to be here with you. I'm glad you're with us. We're live on CKLU 96.7 FM on the radio and also online if you stream us at cklu.ca. You just click on the Radio Player Canada logo there and a streamer will open up or a player and you can stream us anytime on the internet. And if you want to take us with you anywhere, anytime on your favorite device, you just download that Radio Player Canada app, and that's exactly what you can do. And that's with just listening over CKLU. Then you can also, as most of you are and do each and every day, is watch us live or not, because it's live, but then it's also on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Sudbury News. After the live to be able to watch it and anytime. Also at youtube.com/Sudbury News. Also make sure to like, share, subscribe, follow, all that stuff because it really does help get the conversation out there to as many people. And what we're doing here is a community conversation where this is your show on your station and basically this whole idea of Sudbury News is basically a service to the community to be able to unpack some local and not so local issues and to be able to bring people in as guests as we have today. We actually have 3 live guests. We don't normally have that. Sometimes I'm solo, usually 1 live guest, but I like this idea. This was the idea of the show even in the beginning, to have multiple people just having a conversation. Everybody wakes up in the morning and we're there having a conversation all together about current events and issues that are important to us. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. We really appreciate that. And we'll get right down to it. We usually start with a little bit of weather, a little bit of sports, and the Sudbury Wolves played last night. It was an interesting game. So we'll get through that. Then we'll go through headlines, introduce the guests, and have a really awesome conversation. I know yesterday we had at the end of the show. And good morning, David. Thanks for being with us this morning. Good to see you on. We had a really, I don't know about heated, but we had a conversation with a lot of points of view yesterday. And maybe we'll do a follow-up. And that was our deep dive yesterday, talking about Elon Musk getting booed or not, according to what news source you looked at. Was he really booed? Was he not? How did people look at that? How are people looking at Elon Musk as his takeover of Twitter? Is it is he getting a fair whatever look at what's going on? Is there bias going on? So anyways, just looking at that and just want to understand for ourselves what the real deal is. And that's exactly what we're trying to do here, is look through all the smoke and mirrors that's going on in a very confusing, very loud media landscape and just try and make some sense of stuff. So anyways, without further ado, we'll get into some weather and we'll be back with a little bit of sports and then our guest panel with the headlines and some really great conversations today. We'll be right back after this. All right, Sudbury weather today brought to you by sudburyweather.ca. That's basically our weather page on our sudbury.news webpage. And you can find everything you need to know about the weather on that page. Anyways, so currently it's minus 12, but it feels like minus 19 out there. The humidity's 91%. And today it's clearing in the morning, the wind will be coming from the northeast, 20 kilometers near noon, but a high of minus 4. But the wind chill will feel like minus 18 today. So it'll be very brisk this morning, but high of -8 this afternoon. So warm up a little bit. Tonight, partly cloudy, becoming clear this morning. Becoming clear early in the evening, increasing cloudiness before morning, wind becoming east 20 kilometers, gusting to 40 near midnight, low of -9, wind chill -8 this evening, and -17 overnight. Thursday, cloudy, periods of snow and local blowing snow beginning near noon. Just for my drive home, thank you. Hopefully it holds off a little bit because driving conditions have been really good other than a couple days so far this winter or this season. So I really can't complain, but hopefully that holds off. About 5 centimeters accumulation, and the winds will be gusting up to 60 kilometers an hour, high near zero. So it's going to be, right on that cusp. Hopefully there's no freezing rain in there. The wind chill, though, will be -15 in the morning. That's Thursday. Expect some white stuff. So then Friday, chance of flurries as well. I have 60% chance of flurries. So we're looking at Thursday, Friday. Good chance that we're going to get some white stuff. And then tapering off a little bit Saturday, Sunday, but they're still forecasting for some. High of -1, high of -2, respectively. And then Monday, Tuesday, the clearing begins and mix of sun and cloud. As you know, the weather, it's hard to predict. You never know, but that's the way it stands so far. Here's a look at your satellite. Over the last 24 hours, you can see all the clouds coming in from the west, possibly bringing some of that snow. You can see the activity on the other side of the Great Lakes that we're going to be experiencing tomorrow. Anyways, that's your weather, brought to you by sudburyweather.ca on our Sudbury News web page. And we'll be back with some sports right after this. All right, and the Wolves were in action last night. They were facing the Barrie Colts in Barrie. You could have caught that game right here live on CKLU. David Bowen had the call on that game. It was an interesting game, very high scoring game. Ended up being 7-5, but not for the Sudbury Wolves. Derek McKenzie didn't think the Sudbury Wolves were perfect last night, but he figured they were at least good enough to come away with 2 points. And I agree with him. The headline is, "We should have won that game. Wolves keep battling back, but leave Barrie with a loss." Sudbury's, wow, the shots we had on net. It was 40 shots on net for us, 24 for Barrie. And we beat them in shots 18-5 just in the third period alone, but ended up losing 7-5. And that's the way it ended. Landon McCallum, Jacob Holmes, Coach Adelic, which I love that name, Coach Adelic. Who couldn't love a name like that? Alex Ferrand and Nathan Villeneuve scored, and Quentin Musty got this. Recorded 2 assists, gave him 31 points currently in the season. He's on a 15-game point streak. Quentin Musty, also invited to the NHL Prospects game in BC coming up late January. So he's just been on fire. I know there's been some voices that wanted David Goyette called to that as well. And I can agree to a large extent. I know if he keeps just playing the way he's playing, though, he'll be there next year. No problem. But anyways, Joe Ranger stopped 17 shots, but they fell to Barrie. And they're currently 9 wins, 15 losses, 3 ties for the season. So their record isn't doing all that well, but they've been really playing. And they came back from 4-1 deficit against the same Barrie Colts on, was it Sunday? Saturday. On Saturday. Anyways, and we're able to come back and beat them in overtime 5-4. So we really had the feeling they were going to win. So coming up this Friday is when they're in action again at the Sudbury Arena, 7:05 puck drop. December 16th, they'll be in action against the Mississauga Steelheads. So make sure to get down and see that game. There's nothing like getting in the seats and experiencing the new atmosphere with the Wolves game. It's really awesome. And be there to cheer them on. You could make that difference with a close game to put them over the edge and actually win. And that's your Sudbury Sports, brought to you by SudburySports.com. Randy Pascal, he's that Sudbury Sports guy, brings you all the latest Sudbury Sports on his website. SudburySports.com. Visit it for the latest, greatest in Sudbury Sports. And we'll be back right after this with our guests and headlines. All right. And yeah, like I said earlier, this show was designed to be exactly what we're going to be doing coming up here. And that's sharing. I'm just unmuting all your mics. So if you got the sniffles or you're coughing or whatever, you will be heard. And all of your comments could be used against you in a court of law at some point in the future. So just be aware of that. So without
bring it on.
Without
buddy.
further ado, I'll just bring in all of our guests here, and then there's no particular order to anyone, but I'm just letting everyone in on the 4 screen. So we're the Brady Bunch today. You like that show from the 70s? If you remember that. I bet you there's
we
one
need
of
Alice
us.
in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. Have you ever seen that show at all, Nick?
I know about the show. I've never watched the show, but it was the reruns when I was little. So yeah,
Okay.
You guys are much older than me, guys. I'm much younger, and I don't really remember that show.
That's fine.
Just to rub it in.
Yeah.
So
But
cool.
But it becomes iconic when there's
back,
screens.
Nick.
Yeah.
I know. Every
So-
time I see screens like this, I actually think of the Brady Bunch. So
Exactly. It's become iconic with these types of split screens. So, Nick, You're with us today. I think our audience is very familiar. You've been on the show many, many times, and and you're able to kind of weave in a lot about yourself, as we're talking. And Brian's been with us too several times, especially lately. He is a Montreal Canadiens fan, so
go Habs, go!
Yeah, so we have another Habs fan on the show as well.
Well, that's not entirely true, but
Okay. Well, you have a shirt. You have a Habs shirt.
So I have a blue one that kind of resembles another team. But
I see. But today,
and today it's Montreal. Yeah, I got to spend some time out there. So during my time out there, I got to get acquainted with the Habs.
Right on.
So I became Maple Leafs Habs cross fan, I guess, or something like that.
There's not many of us out there. They always want you to choose a side, right? But I'm in the same boat as you.
Toronto and Montreal is just amazing when they play together.
But we need to bring in an Ottawa Senators fan here.
Sure, yeah.
Meher.
I am an Ottawa Senators fan.
They're in the back of the crowd.
So Meher, this is your first time.
And you know what? I don't just my first time on the show today. Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome.
Kind of like
Meher.
mine too. It's always like the first time.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I don't dislike the Leafs. I don't. Contrary to all the Sens fans don't like the Leafs. I don't like. I don't mind the Leafs. I just don't like the Leafs fans.
Yeah. Well, you and I can still share a seat just the same. It's all cool.
Yeah, the Leafs and Leafs fans, you have to make a distinction between the two, obviously.
Most of my friends are Leafs fans.
Right.
Now you have an interesting.
My dad's cringing right now.
You have an interesting story, Meher, like of being introduced to hockey itself, right? Remember you shared, or it was baseball.
Yeah.
Sorry, the Blue Jays. Remember you were
It was both. I was at an Ottawa Senators game. Their first season, their inauguration season in 1992, and they were playing the Rangers. And at some point in the third period, they announced that the Blue Jays won the World Series, and that was my first live hockey game ever. So it was an introduction to baseball and hockey at the same time. I've been a fan of the Blue Jays and the Senators since that day.
Cool.
Yeah,
it was
that's
an incredible
awesome.
experience.
Especially
we
for your
leave the
first
arena
time.
Yeah, we leave the arena and there's thousands of people in the streets celebrating, and it happens to be on my birthday as well. It was a birthday.
Oh, wow.
The, the tickets to the hockey game were a gift from my friend's father for my birthday, and we went to the game. And it was an incredible experience. And then the next year, the Blue Jays win it again on my birthday.
Oh,
On the
wow.
24th, 25th of October. Yeah.
That's incredible.
So it was,
An experience, yeah.
yeah. And what an atmosphere. Mark Messier scores the winning goal for the Rangers in overtime that game.
That's awesome. So
was,
the excitement, just very exciting. It was on your birthday, and then the next year too, just to kind of they won the World Series again. This is your first, kind of introduction into, what it is, sports, the idea of sports and kind of the excitement of it. And I ended before bringing you guys on with that very kind of sentiment about the Sudbury Wolves locally and our sports teams here. And what do you think? Do you think, Maher, what has been your kind of feelings of that same idea, bringing that to Sudbury? Like, where do you think we're at with that whole thing?
Well, I mean, championships win fans, right? So I think what we need is we need to string 3 seasons together where we make it deep into the playoffs, and look at the Sudbury Five and how well they did in their inauguration season, and how many fans they got just because they got into the playoffs that year, and then they had a winning team. Well, there's a lot of things that I think that Sudbury needs as far as sports viewership or sports fandom, and one of them is we need more programs to integrate the city youth into whatever these sports teams are doing, because I go to the games and it's the same faces all the time, and a lot of older people. Not a lot of younger people.
I think you're right on that one.
Parking. We need parking.
For downtown parking, for sure.
Well, people don't realize how the logistic is like an issue, and that's a massive issue. And people they cringe just thinking of going downtown. Like, I don't want to go downtown. And even though it's not that bad, I've gone to 3 games, and it's not that bad. I've been able to find parking, and it's been okay. You do a little bit of a walk, it's fine, but it's just, bumper to bumper. Everyone's like bumper to bumper, and it just causes a little bit of anxiety. And really, it's like you could just miss the first 5 minutes of the game and there won't be any type of anxiety. You'll miss the crowd, but I like the crowd. I like that energy, but a lot of people.
Or better yet, come into downtown, give yourself some time, go grab a bite to eat somewhere, support the local restaurants and pubs, go to the game. After the game, hang around downtown for another 10, 15 minutes. And this is ubiquitous in all sporting events. You have, anywhere between 5 to 105,000 people leaving an area. Yeah. We see it everywhere. I've been in Toronto when there was hockey and baseball in the same day, and it's insanity in downtown. You can't move, and so. But I mean, they've been doing that for a long time, and they figured it out.
But Toronto, you could always find parking. There's always parking. There's parking lots. There's parking everywhere. Also, there's the homeless problem downtown is. I don't see that in Toronto. I'm not from Toronto, so I don't really necessarily see it. But Sudbury has shifted. So to tell me, hey, Nick, go to eat dinner downtown with your daughter, I'm like, oh yeah, downtown is kind of a sketchy area now.
I live in downtown. I live in downtown, and it's not as visible as it was the last couple of years, especially since we no longer have a tent city. That subject in itself is not. That subject in itself should be separated from whether or not people should support their sports team.
No, of course.
I think, and it's a North American problem. It's actually a Western world problem. And if you want to talk about it, we should probably take like a couple of days and then try to unfold everything that's going on with the opiate crisis, especially since on our news there was one article 4 days ago that said that Sudbury experiences 3 times more deaths than the rest of Ontario when it comes to opioids. Well, there's multiple reasons for that, and I speak to a lot of people that are involved, and the high death rate is it's definitely something to look into.
And I'd like, curious to know, like, where these people live, and I'm just assuming that they probably live downtown. So it's just what I'm saying is that I think if we had a new arena, I know this is a constant conversation, a new arena with great parking away from the downtown, it would bring in a lot other people. It would bring a different clientele. It would bring more family. It would bring more youth. More people would feel, maybe parents would feel more comfortable having their teenagers take a bus to a different, like, entertainment, district than to go downtown. So that's why I was thinking about this.
I disagree. I disagree not based on my how I feel about downtown in particular. I just disagree because there's been multiple studies in Sudbury. They've hired companies from outside of the city, and a few studies, 3 studies that they brought into Sudbury, and they all said that the arena will do much better in the downtown area.
I don't.
Every study said that. Every study said that. And
well,
whether or not
just because there was a study, like, who made the study, who paid for the study. So I don't believe that study, because literally everyone I talked to,
well,
everyone I talked to does not want an arena downtown unless they clean up the downtown.
Our downtown, I don't think was really put into the idea of this study. Like, Sudbury's an anomaly. We all know this.
The two are separate, really. I'm sorry, it's me here, right?
Yes.
And I'm not going to let. I mean, it's unattractive, but I'm not going to let it stop me from enjoying my downtown or what downtown has to offer for me in terms of, in terms of pub and nighttime entertainment or whatnot.
You're not a single mom, and
I'm not a single mom, and I'm not raising a daughter, so I don't.
It's different. Like, literally, I went there for the Christmas market, and I saw 3 groups shooting up while walking my daughter, and I was like, I'm not going downtown anymore.
Yeah, it's an issue, and a lot of people do.
The two are separate,
and a lot of people do feel like that. It is separate. It's also intertwined in some ways, though. But it needs the time of day to really unpack, like Maher was saying. Talk about it a lot, and we have been. And we have been talking about it.
I also want to say this. Yeah, I just want to say this. Like, in the way Sudbury views downtown is like, oh, it's downtown, but it's almost saying, oh, it's my hand is rotting with gangrene. It's not me. It's just my hand that's rotting with gangrene. The downtown issues are not an indication of what's happening in downtown. They're an indication of what's happening to our society in general. And they are, and then the first symptoms that appear in downtown, predominantly because we have the methadone clinics in here and all the services in downtown. But this is not a downtown sickness. This is a Sudbury sickness.
Yeah. No.
Well, where do you want them next door to you?
Where are they going to go?
Where do you put them? Yeah. Do you want them? Do you want them in your backyard? Like,
I want them in my backyard. Who would want them in their backyard?
Well, that's what he's saying. If you don't have it downtown, where is it going to be?
Somewhere, not downtown. Yeah. I'm just saying, it's hard to promote downtown when you're like, it's like if we had a jail with, like, serious murderers. Like, let's put that downtown.
It is.
No.
Just kidding. There is a jail.
I would love to sit down with you and have a cup of coffee, double espresso in that cup of coffee, just so I can tell you everything that's going on, and then just counter all your points. Not because I want to counter your points, it's because this has been a discussion at large for the last 5 years. Actually, more like the last 12 years since the first OxyContin epidemic that we've had here in downtown. And now it's just increasing. And a lot of the people that are here, they're not even from Sudbury. They're coming here from outside of Sudbury for the services that we provide.
True.
So
All right. Should we talk about the news, Aaron?
Well, I'm going to get
Yeah.
to the no, no,
About
no.
the news, Aaron.
Yeah.
Well, this is the news. There's no doubt about it. Like, this is
All right.
what's going on in
Yeah.
our city. I have no
This is
problem
the
with that.
show.
However, there
Unplugged.
are a lot of
Definitely
Unplugged.
local issues.
a lot of comments coming in, obviously. So
Unplugged.
just
Unplugged.
want to say good morning to a lot of our people here.
CKLU radio in the morning is awesome. I'll tell you, at about 6:30 there.
There you go. Shane,
really
so
starts to
Jerome,
fly.
good morning. Shane, good morning. Diane, good morning. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Bon matin. Oh, I'm Francais this morning.
Ooh, Natalie's saying there's lots of parking downtown.
Yeah.
There is lots of parking. I live in downtown, and during the games, I can look out my window and I can see parking spaces that are vacant. You just have to know. It's just like everything else. You have to know where to go and what to do.
Great.
So yeah,
Two
Natalie.
And there's
roundabout till you find one.
That's the thing. Do we allow, the parking underneath Tom Davies Square? Do we allow
Almost
that
like a
for
chess game down there sometimes.
Yeah,
yes.
do we allow that
Yeah,
for
but-
parking for the Wolves games?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
I just parked there
So
last night.
is there
No, I
free
didn't know
parking is there free parking at any time downtown? I'm just wondering. See, I
After
don't drive
6?
either.
After 6 p.m. After 6 p.m., it's all
Oh, I
free in
see.
downtown,
Okay.
except for the private parking
Except for the
parking
private
lots.
establishments.
That's
Okay.
the other thing. Is that I think what we need to do is we need to collectively, I think, create some kind of a system where it allows people to park in the private parking lots, because that's a point of contention. A lot of people will get booted, and then once you get a boot, now I think it's upwards of $200 to get the boot removed from your vehicle.
Yeah. Right.
It's a kind of extortion for all we have to. I mean, we could create a system where actually these parking lots can generate a lot of money for their owners without having to inconvene all the tenants or all the people that use these parking lots. And all you have to do is maybe, I think something that we have to look into collectively as a downtown community.
Yeah. Now,
'Cause
Natalie,
you can make it into a money maker versus a punishment system.
I know. Yeah. Now, Natalie also, wants to, what does the city have? Let's start with what the city does have instead of what the city doesn't have,
Yes.
and build from there. I like that perspective. Now, she was just recently voted into city council, and she's in the news quite a bit, actually. So congrats, Natalie, for getting in there and diving in the deep end. I just wanted to say that personally, I've noticed that you're just rolling up your sleeves.
Bravo, kudos.
Yeah, you're rolling up your sleeves. You're getting in there. And I like the story from Sudbury.com. I'll just share the screen here if that's okay with y'all. Here it is. Wide sweeping changes to the city's network of emergency services infrastructure, including several fire hall consolidations, were proposed in a report. We talked about that on the show. And Greater Sudbury will now be seeking public consultation on, thanks to a motion by Ward 7 Councillor Natalie Labby. So there you go. So now, instead of just going ahead and consolidating everything, we're invited to the conversation, which I think is one of the things we've been really calling for, was more public input into the decisions that the city are making. So what do you guys think about that?
Decision making. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's
More
like
transparency.
Yeah.
like the public should have a vote where it's like we all vote, but hopefully that's not corrupt, because that could easily be corrupted. And then that's our vote, say yay or nay.
Yeah, like, I mean, even to have polls,
Yeah,
maybe not
polls.
even to vote, just at least see how
That's what I
everyone
mean.
thinks about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Poll everybody on issues.
This particular topic it has to be broken down into multiple topics, because emergency services they mean so much. They're different categories, whether it's the fire, medical emergencies, or policing emergencies, and they all have different resources, and they're all of them are stretched to the max. But they have to be addressed, I think, independently. They can't be bundled together.
I think this
in
is
that way.
going
But
to cause problems.
But transparency is the way to do it. And for the most part, I think they have been transparent, especially about how much money it's been costing for for the, like, I heard it so many times.
It's all there. It's on the financials.
So many fires, arson, so many near-death experiences, or even overdoses, or people dying, as well as policing. It hasn't been fun for any of these emergency services, specifically just post-COVID. And so when it comes to policing, a lot of it has gone by the wayside not because of the policing here, but because of the court systems are so backed up. And then so many things are just being thrown out in the courts. Yeah. They've been pushed aside because we don't have the ability to process that quickly. And
it's incredible. I was, sorry to interrupt, but I was speaking with a paramedic just not long ago, and he was telling me that just here in Sudbury, an average of about 6 to 8 calls an hour, and all of them are to deal with some very specific thing. But no, just totally exhausted services altogether, and amalgamating or consolidating any of them at this point.
All these systems were stretched out to the max, including nursing, including services in hospitals, and it's just going to take time. A lot of people are either leaving their job for other jobs that are now becoming available, or changing careers altogether, or going on stress leave. The amount of policemen and policewomen that we've had in the last several years that took a lot of stress leave, the job has become not at all what they signed up for. It's a lot more on everybody, and salutes to them, hats off to them.
I think that's a problem overall at the hospital, at all these services, is that these workers that we so desperately need aren't getting the service that they need to actually do the job. They're not getting support, So then you are like crumbling your own little system. So then the whole system collapsed. And there was a comment from Ty that works for these services, and he said emergency services is a slippery slope to get into, so much to consider that the public isn't aware of. And it would be just so interesting to know a little bit more about, and be educated on why this is. But I think one of the problems is that these employees are traumatized and are seeing so many different situations that any one of us would be so traumatized, but because you're in this industry, you should just know how to just shut off your feelings and just move on and go with your life. But a lot of people are getting PTSD, and that's a lot of therapy, and then that's backed up. So the whole system is just needing a lot of support.
And it's one thing to get the public to weigh in, which I appreciate Natalie, doing that, getting the public. Are we listening to the frontline workers too, though? Like Ty, for instance, workers. Are we listening to their points of view? Because they're there every day. You know how sometimes you're on a job and senior management has no clue about how the day-to-day operations are of that organization. They don't know,
every day.
And they're always complaining. They're saying, we need this, we need that. And the senior management are kind of like, they're kind of locked away somewhere in the building, and they don't really see or understand. It's kind of like that. Are we really listening to the people that are working there? Yeah, exactly.
That's sort of
so.
And sometimes, even if the management is aware of the problems, the solutions are not readily available.
Or they're that too, yeah.
If you were to think about what policing does in cities like this, in smaller towns, it's even more so because they have to take on a lot more roles. But let's stick with Sudbury. So. Police officer is responsible for traffic. If a traffic light goes down, they have to go in and direct traffic, and it goes all the way from that to like relieving domestic violence issues, to extracting children for children's aid, to going into a homicide or a lethal accident, to busting drug busts, to reviving an overdose, to so the amount of things that they and then so then you go into a crisis like we had 2.5-3 years of a pandemic where a portion of the police force were not allowed to work because they refused to take the vaccine. That's one issue. Another, or if it's not refusing to take the vaccine, it's
enforcing some of the measures too, right? That are imposed. There's that extra work they had to do.
All the amount of stress. Yeah, exactly. So a lot of the force left the force because also other jobs became available. There's so many other jobs that became available that were not so demanding on physically and mentally. So now you try to integrate people back into the system. You have to bring in new workforce. Any industry, most industries, if you look at them, it's like 30% of the workforce has been decimated. Whether it's hospitality, emergency, any of these industries, they're all been decimated. The workforce has been decimated. You try to integrate new people into the job force, and then if you try to expedite it, then you end up with bad, or likelihood of bad police force.
And also,
people that are coming
when
in.
you're bringing in new workers, I could just imagine that they don't really understand what the culture was before. They're now understanding the culture is today, which is completely different. So then there's like a complete difference between old employees and new employees, and they're even being trained differently. The whole experience is different. Everyone's been traumatized. So it's completely different culture, and culture is so important within an organization. So I could see that being in effect.
Yeah, absolutely. And then resources also. Then you have to talk about introducing resources, and then the relationship between the city and the province, and whose role is what, and then it's one of the things that I read before is that in the 21st century right now are none of our problems are simple. Our problems are multifaceted and extremely complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Natalie chimed in here and said she actually brought that up as well to get the frontline workers' opinions and to have a full conversation with everybody involved. So I really appreciate that. I never had a chance to see the meeting last night, unfortunately. But
I agree. I think the first voice should be the people that are involved in these industries and the workers. They know best, and they understand their problems the most.
Yeah,
out of all of us, we can sit here and talk about it.
Yeah. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now Miles also says he
whose
works
agenda, whose agenda, the people's agenda, or
and it needs to be a mixture. It needs to be a mixture, and that's why it needs to be transparent, and everyone needs to have their say, and again, these are solutions to problems,
I'm
right?
totally blown away. I'm going to press rewind a little bit. Sorry, Nick. But, like with these emergency services being stretched and far not, and then, consolidating as part of an answer. And so I remember reading something like, what was it? There was a bunch of money put in by the government to encourage, nursing. At the beginning of the pandemic, there was a crisis there, a staffing issue. So there was a bunch of money that was put out there. Here's a pile of money. Fast track as many healthcare workers as you can. Get them educated. Get them positioned where they can help. And we're gonna funnel in all this cash. So here it is 2 years later. All this cash has been funneled in. It's been earmarked. It's documented. It's there. It's ready to go. But I'm reading now that none of these people that were, that was the incentive for them to go into, nursing program or whatever healthcare program it is that they, want to go into. And then they haven't seen a dime, not a dime of this money, not a single freaking dime. Where's that? But yeah, and then now we're coming out with all these other,
So you're saying that these people were
into things like, okay, well, we're going to consolidate all
right,
emergency
Brian? Are you
services.
saying that these like individuals were promised like a bonus for going into the program?
Well, yeah, the incentive,
right.
The incentive, and then so where's the incentive after you've I'll term the phrase Doug Ford,
so
the
now,
work your bag off,
right?
And then then this, and then like Mael said, this multifaceted, the problems of the 21st century, 20th century are, we're still dealing with problems from the friggin' 19th century. You know what I mean? The stuff that we really, it shouldn't even be an issue today.
So this is again amalgamation. We're a kind of spread out community, right? You have Levac, Cape Breal, Coniston, these outlying communities that used to be their own entities on their own. They had their own mayors, they had their own infrastructure, they had their own budgets, blah, blah, blah. And then we amalgamated.
Yeah, so, fire stations, policing, all of that, yeah.
Yeah, So now, there's this call. I'll just share the letter for the Sudbury Star here. Second story on the Sudbury News Facebook page. The letter, decentralizing Greater Sudbury, not breaking it up, is the goal. So I think the idea, there's a movement out there to decentralize, but keep a lot of the things that were positive about amalgamation by not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but also really addressing this issue of amalgamation and doing not a postmortem, but looking back and seeing what we can learn from it. One part of the letter is the population of Greater Sudbury has not grown since amalgamation in 1999, but it has. So I don't know that the readers or the writer of this is
I've noticed
misinformed.
with the population from reading, the census statistics, really.
Yeah.
And I know how much you hate statistics there, Nick, but what I see is a decrease in population. And I even remember reading, the one that was handed out in business school, that Learning Initiative, and it was an older one, but the same sort of demographic existed, where you see the younger population are they're coming to school here, they're being raised here, but as soon as they graduate from school or they start their own families, usually people tend to migrate away, and that's sort of.
I don't agree with the idea that our population is going down. It actually is going up. I mean, just to drive
here in Greater Sudbury.
I've been here from going to high school since 15 years old, and I've noticed an increase in everything. The busyness at the malls, the busyness on the streets, the construction, everything, and then the numbers kind of go along with that. But I don't think they're big enough.
People leaving.
But I also, no. I understand that, but ultimately, eventually, when you take the net increase is on its way up, but not substantially. But they're wondering. So this is the thing: when you amalgamate, you think how there's space in between all these communities. You think, well, if we grow fast enough, it all kind of just it all grows into one another. Like Toronto used to be all separate, Mississauga, Etobicoke, all these communities used to be separate from one another. Well, now you don't notice a difference. You're just driving through a city now when you go down there. And I thought when you amalgamate like Greater Sudbury, if that would happen with the kind of growth here, we wouldn't really be having this conversation as much. But it hasn't had the growth it kind of needed in order to substantiate a lot of that. So again, we're having growing pains to a large extent, I think, and we're not big enough, but we're not small enough either. So I think it's a hard decision to make.
As what you need is a good plan.
Go ahead, Maher. Go ahead.
Please.
So Sudbury in area mass is the largest city in Ontario, second largest city in Canada, next to Winnipeg. We have 311 lakes within the city limits. And then not only do we have these issues, we have other issues where a lot of the land within the city limits are claimed by mining companies. So there won't be any development on that. And to top that off, we have a lot of areas in Sudbury that are still under the regreening programs that have been instituted in the 70s until now. So Sudbury is very unique in the problems that we have. Sudbury has big city incentives and big city problems for a city that does not have big city population. Correct. We're nowhere near 1 million people for the size that we are. We're at 170,000 at best. And yes, we have a medical school, we have an architect school, we have a hospital, we have a cancer center, we have and also we produce a lot of great things here in Sudbury. So we do have a lot of these things, and you
never even mentioned mining here. You never even mentioned
mining.
The whole
that
main
was
industry.
Thing, that was one of the things that I wanted to mention. But we exist because of mining.
Exactly. Yeah.
When it comes to amalgamation of the little townships that are these are. So what I'm saying, and I like here's an example, right? The Valley now has developed a little bit of a nice little downtown with a lot of nice restaurants. And they're placing your malls, big malls in the Valley, and they're developing their own culture in the Valley. And that's happening organically. It's not happening in all the places. Like it's not happening in like Azilda has been relatively the same. There's still some cool stuff happening there, but relatively the same. But there's growth in areas and not growth in other areas. And you can't have an expectation of let's say Onaping. Onaping is not going to develop as fast as the Valley because the Valley has its own population and it's quite large. Not only is it quite large, it encompasses a lot of young families. A lot of young families move to the Valley because of the ease and relatively inexpensive real estate in the last few years. And a lot of these families are growing there, and they've established their own downtown. I think in general, Sudbury is quite healthy, and it does. Our problem is still the same as always. A lot of our youth end up leaving Sudbury, but they come back.
Mm-hmm.
To unamalgamate right now is extremely complicated. Big cities have the same problem with that. It's extremely complicated because we've had to, since the amalgamation, we had to jump into several systems, maybe 6 or 7 systems of computerization, where you're taking all these and now you have to undo that.
I'm all for decentralizing. I think we like to complicate things and we say, oh, it would be way too complicated, but we just need to simplify everything. And maybe this is just a sign that maybe we should simplify things, and we could still use the same for if there's a computer system or a software that they're using, like you're saying, why just not use the same type of computer system, but there's just its own council in its own towns. And
that's not what I meant by the systems. Like, here's a perfect example, right? So let's say the Ontario Building Code will cover certain projects across Sudbury, but then we have our own city code that covers the remaining of it. And now, if you were to de-amalgamate, then these townships have to contract that, and then you have to divvy up the responsibility of whose taxes are going where, and who's paving the roads, and to what standards are they paving the roads, and who's taking care of the bridges, and who's manning the water systems, and who's taking care of the water quality.
Natalie was saying we could keep the same stuff. The good stuff could stay the same. So if there's the paving is not an issue in Onaping, then just leave it as is. So there's just a lot of things we can do. We can't just
it's the
do
undoing
something because it's complicated.
But you can't. That's the problem. Is that right now you're trying to figure out who's paying for what. I'll give you a perfect example.
We're already you're telling me right now we already have a problem. Who's paying what? And then we're saying that we can't decentralize because now we're going to wonder where the taxpayers go. So it's like it's the same problem. You know what I mean?
It's funny because I'm sure that there's an example somewhere in North America where townships decentralized from the big cities or separated from the big cities. I mean, also those are models that we can look into.
Exactly.
I'm not saying that it's impossible. What I'm trying to say is that you're asking a lot of politicians.
I know, but I don't like just one group of people also being in control of a big area. It's actually better for us. I don't like politicians either. I don't really want more politicians, but if it's more local people that really care about Onaping, that they stay there and they know Onaping problems, they should be more empowered than the guy that's in Sudbury in an office that knows nothing about Onaping. Yeah. So the more people have a voice, the better.
But imagine this, let's say there's a medical emergency that needs to go to the hospital in a city that de-amalgamated from Sudbury. All of a sudden, you don't have public transportation that will take that person from...
Why wouldn't we have public transportation? We have public transportation right now.
But that's de-amalgamation would take
why does it have to be one or the other? Why can't we have a blended system?
You can.
We have a blended system right now. It's called amalgamation.
Well, no, I'm just saying what people are wondering is that they want more voices from each town, Yeah,
so we have to find a way. That's the thing. We got to find a way. It can't just be one extreme or another extreme, almost like a hybrid of some
Exactly.
kind
Onaping never had their own hospital. So
Mhm.
before we amalgamated, obviously there was an ambulance from Onaping
Yeah.
that would grab the person from Onaping and bring them to Sudbury. But
Mhm.
now all of a sudden there's an issue. If we decentralize, there's going to be an issue and we might not have transportation. That to me just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it wouldn't be
Well,
easy.
there's going to be a lot of
but it's possible.
logistics. A lot of
I'm not saying that's what would happen. I'm saying these are the type of things that have to be in
Addressed.
discussion.
Addressed. Yeah.
I'm not saying that they're not going to care for someone in
I know,
Onaping
I
just
know.
because they've amalgamated. But and of course I'm not. I'm just throwing examples of how complicated these things are. They're very complicated. I think we're missing the point. It's not one way or the other. I think we have to introduce new solutions.
Yeah.
I would hate to see that we're enlarging the size of our government just based on the fact that these things are occurring, and there's a desire for some township to leave because they feel that they're treated somewhat unfairly, or they're not getting the value for their tax money.
So, personal question to everybody, and you don't have to answer this. Have you ever spent time in the Sudbury jail?
No.
You don't have to answer it. I just said that.
I got fingerprinted. I don't know. I got close.
Honestly,
I got close.
Don't need to know. Don't need to know information. The reason why I asked that is the Sudbury jail is getting $10 million for a facelift from the Ministry of the Solicitor General, confirmed
What?
Tuesday that upgrades
What?
will include lighting, doors, infrastructure, security systems, and a new canopy roof, enclosures for increased yard access. So I think there's going to be, some things for physical fitness. $10 million.
$10 million. And
Doesn't
we're talking
go.
about how there's not enough money for our emergency services right now, guys.
But this is the thing.
Problem.
Jails also need to be looked at, though. If I know the Sudbury jail is synonymous with people who understand it, that it's really, it does need an upgrade. It's like inhumane, like it's probably against human rights. Oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff that needs upgrades.
But I just mean like these tickets are always like $10 million. Like, who is doing the contract? What are you paying for this canopy? And like a local contractor might be able to do it for $200,000, but for some reason it's costing $600,000.
Trudeau just put out there,
yeah, there's missing money he just gave to anybody during COVID. There's billions of dollars went out to people. We got lots of money. We can just waste it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of money out there.
Okay, I'll change my opinion. Maybe they do need a facelift.
Click here.
Yeah.
Well, those are two separate issues. The money issue is one, and infrastructure is another one. So this is what I think. Let's have at it. This is federal money. We all Canadians pay into it. All of our resources pay into it. This is federal money coming into this sector. The more projects like this, the better, because most likely they will hire local people to do the work. So that's money coming into our economy, coming in from the federal government. And, no harm, no foul, because they collect enough taxes from our resources as well that are coming out of the ground here. It's not local money that's going into that, which is, as far as I'm concerned,
it's still money coming to our city that, like, if someone could do the work for cheaper, then maybe the rest of the money can go into a different sector in Sudbury.
Well, I think that's just a principled way of doing things across the board. I think there's different schools of thought with doing things, and government isn't known to be the best at doing things like that, as we know historically. It just isn't. And but anyways, so that's a huge issue is trying to get the most bang for your buck, especially when you're dealing with government, because a lot of times they
better look real good if they're getting $10 million.
They earmark so much money for this, for that, and a lot of it's PR. A lot of it's PR for communities. There's a lot of stuff going on.
We need someone like you to make it look pretty. It has to have unfortunately, the prison doesn't have a woman's touch.
Oh, there you go. Exactly.
More women.
That'd be a interior decorator of prisons. That'd be an interesting.
For their inner self, their mental health. Like, it makes a difference. Maybe put in some color in there, because it's all about jail. Is all about what is it? Like reprogramming kind of thing, like
Rehabilitation.
right?
Yeah.
In a sense.
Correct.
So
So we
I
want to
gotta-
help their mental health and for them to love
For sure.
themselves so that they could.
yeah,
True.
there's so many big.
Hopefully that's integrated into the $10 million that's been spent.
I ain't going nowhere near it.
Yeah.
Fingerprints were enough. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
I also don't know what the state of the place is.
If I get my 50 cents after the tour, okay. All right. Then I'm good.
I'll
Well,
go
guys,
first.
I'm gonna have to leave it there. Reason being,
It's over.
time is up. So
C'est fini.
What a
See how
great
fast-
conversation.
that was almost an hour, guys. My hair's like, what do you think?
Wow.
My hair comes on this morning. We're getting it ready. He goes, what do you think? 20 minutes? You think we
20
get 20 minutes? I'm like, no,
Yeah.
my hair, this is how it works. I do a little bit of sports, a little bit of weather, and then we talk.
It's unreal how fast time flies when you're
Having fun.
just enjoying the conversation. You guys, I had so much fun
Awesome.
talking to you guys.
I
or
know, I
talking with
agree.
you guys. This is a great thing.
Welcome, Maher. That was
Listen-
really good. It's good to
Thank
have
you so much.
different opinions on the show. It makes the show even more interesting. So I enjoy it.
Yeah, hopefully
And
we can do this
I love
again
your
soon.
opinion too, and Nick. Sorry if I sounded too
Nope.
contrary to
No,
you.
I
I constantly play the devil's advocate. That's my
Okay,
thing.
That's good. I will be contrary to whoever.
I'm sure our
Yeah,
listeners,
I always
listeners,
like your personality. You got a bum deal on Big Brother, so I'm just putting that out there.
Thanks, Brian. Number one
Yeah.
fan.
our
Hey.
listeners and viewers do appreciate that.
Yeah.
So thanks very much, guys. We'll be back soon enough anyways, and see you same time, same place tomorrow. Stay tuned now for Earshot Daily on CKLU 96.7 FM. Have a wonderful day, everyone, and we'll
Thank
see you guys soon. Okay, you're welcome, Maher.
Goodbye.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Thank you so
Take care,
much.
bye.
Okay, ciao.
This is Sudbury News Talk on the morning shift.